What are some difficult truths people need to accept? Story 1. That some people won't like you, and sometimes for no reason. And it's okay if you don't like some people as long as you treat them with courtesy and respect. I agree to treat everyone well, but there are also going to be people, however few they are, that deserve neither. So just move on and don't waste your time or energy on them. They may even be family. So don't feel beholden to anyone because you're related by blood or marriage. Life's too short to spend time and energy on those who don't deserve it. Spend it on those that do. Can relate to this. Was kicked out of a project group in college by other members for no obvious reason. And one of the guys told me privately that another member threatened to quit the group if they didn't do so. He said no one has a problem with you, it's just his demand, and he is really popular. All this a week before the due date. I spoke to the head of the department, and she allowed me to submit it by myself if I could handle it, as it was a workload for a group of 4. I got back mine and received an A, and they got a C+. So it became a pleasant memory. Recently had a friend of 2 decades just out of the blue dump me. She sent me a bizarre text saying that we were no longer on the same emotional level and intimated I had done something to offend her. I have absolutely no idea what triggered this. I have racked my brain trying to figure out what I may have said or done to make a close friend of 27 years, who up until that moment was joking and making plans with me to go hiking with her and her dog, wanting to completely remove me from her life. And it was very clear that she was ending the friendship. I texted her back to ask what she was talking about and got no response. So, another difficult truth or reality that may come up in one's life is being wholeheartedly rejected and ghosted with little to no explanation. It's been painful for me. It was cruel, bordering on sadistic. But then I remember that I'm a grown adult with a lot of friends. I'm not someone with 3 kids whose partner suddenly just up and abandoned them with no clear explanation. Or worse, an "I don't love you anymore." I've seen that happen, and it's devastating. Or worse, a child whose parent abandons them. That is lifelong pain. I'll get over my friend. I was the ghoster in a friend's dumping a few years ago. It was pretty obvious to me, at least, that we were becoming very different people after 2.5 decades of generally tenuous and increasingly toxic friendship. I just couldn't handle it anymore. I was headed into a new chapter in my life and knew that any attempt to talk about my feelings regarding the situation would be dismissed or blamed on me. And I saw an out and just took it. I suppose it was the friendship equivalent of "I just don't love you anymore." But I couldn't figure out the words and didn't have the mental wherewithal to fight for my independence. We'd had friendship breakups before, but she usually reached out after a few months, and I'd let things go back to how they were. When she reached out to go back to normal, I just couldn't anymore. I never told her why, and just never responded to any messages ever again. I think about her periodically, wondering how she and her daughter are doing, but I just can't have that chaos in my life again. I have too much to lose these days. This is honestly the most I've said about it to anybody, including my spouse. Not a comment on your friendship breakup at all, just empathy for a crappy situation that can hurt both sides. I'm sorry you went through it. If I could have done mine differently, I think I would have. Plenty of people in the factory that I work in likely don't care for me. I'm in quality, and I'm a supervisor. So I don't come in with the illusion that I'm going to make a bunch of friends here. There are plenty of times I'd love to be a dick back to people who have that sense of entitlement. I don't, because I just hope that if I need help, others will treat me the same way. Days off? Need to leave early? I'll take care of it because that's what we should do for each other. The one thing I always come back to is that we all lead drastically separate and different lives. When we leave the workplace, we interact and work as a team through the day, and have totally separate lives at night. Who am I to assume that they hate me and aren't just in a crap mood because they have a horrible partner or kids or parents, etc.? I've started to resign myself to the notion of, I didn't do anything wrong, so I'm just gonna keep on keeping on. This happened with my boss at a job earlier this year. The dude just did not like me for some reason. I worked hard, did my job correctly, did as much or more than anyone else in my position, and he was always riding my ass, constantly micromanaging me when he didn't micromanage anyone else. He eventually made up a reason to fire me, sleeping at work. It's pretty interesting that when he confronted me about this when I asked for details, When did I sleep at work? How did he find out since he was working remotely, etc.? Every single answer was, I don't know, or I don't remember. So you're telling me you don't remember who told you I was sleeping at work? You don't remember how you found out, i.e. an email, team chat, etc.? Anyway, I am convinced he's a vengeful asshole and decided to fire me for a cause just to try to screw me over for unemployment. I did eventually win and get unemployment, but it took 4 months, and I already had a job once I got the unemployment payments. But it was nice, unexpectedly having 6 weeks worth of unemployment show up in my account one day. Story 2. There will always be someone better looking, better educated, younger, more experienced, more intelligent, or wealthier than you. Do your best, live without regret, have empathy and kindness, and give when you can. Expecting nothing in return, focus on your heart value more than what others have. For the rest of your life, you're going to want things you can't have. This will make you very unhappy. It may seem to you that the solution is to do everything you can to get those things, but the real solution is to figure out how to want the things that you do have. Happiness sold separately. As someone who is a jack of all trades, it took me a long time to come to terms with this. I can pick up pretty much any skill extremely quickly and well. Both growing up and now, I consistently come forth in anything I enter, from baking to Photoshop challenges, from quilting to singing. Never podium, but just good enough for that feel-good feeling and slight acknowledgement. The cherry on this cake is I'm poor, and always have been, so I've never been really able to get proper education on things. Blew away the person interviewing me for a job once with an incredible ad layout I had done. Super interested until they noticed I didn't have any type of degree, even though I could do the job just fine. I used to struggle a lot because I always felt no good. Once I met my husband, he really helped me realize it was okay to be okay at everything, and he loved how I could pick anything up. I still love to enter baking contests in particular, and still I am stuck at 4th or 5th. But one day, I swear, I will break 3rd. Every time I see one of those I'm X years young and own 50 quadrillion bucks stories, I can't help but feel sorry. You never will know the true set of circumstances why they're there. Rich parents? Right moment, right time? Maybe they truly are just harder workers? It's important to remember that it doesn't matter what they achieve. It's important that you are happy with what you have. And if someone needs videos, interviews, and so much more to show the world how successful and happy they are, then I just can't help but feel sorry that they try so hard, because a truly happy person doesn't need to rub it in other people's faces. They would instead enjoy being happy. This hits so close to home. I grew up in a family of chronic high achievers, and my mother, grandmother, sister, as well as brother are all very ambitious. They will do more than they have to, and make themselves go crazy when they aren't the best on a project. This kind of behavior manifested in me as well, and it ruined my academic experience so much. I always feel like a failure and want to be better and better. And I keep clogging my own thought flow through this pressure I'm putting on myself. But sometimes, even if you give it your all, there is this one person that just one-ups you. Story 3. Once you're an adult, there really isn't anyone you can 100% depend on except yourself. There will still be people in your life to lean on, but everyone has their limits in how much they can help you. To add, and something I'm learning, no one inherently knows how to help you. Wanting people to meet your needs without expressing that you need help isn't always reasonable. Part of adulthood is putting in the work to understand yourself and your needs, and then learning to express those needs. People may show up for you, but they also may not. But you have to learn to communicate. I feel like I'm hyper self-sufficient because my parents were not emotionally available growing up. They provided for me and loved me. They were just not equipped to handle those serious topics. Birds and the bees, puberty, first breakup, etc. They provided nothing for me there, other than, that's life, figure it out. If I run into issues in life now where I actually need help, they are very far down on the list of people to call. I've never had anyone. My childhood forced me to grow up too fast. I'm the only one who's ever been there for me. I pick myself up, clean myself off, and give myself the pep talks, because others always have bigger priorities. What sucks is when you've been doing it for over 20 years before you even hit 30, and you start to question how much you can keep it up for another 20 to 30 years, or how long until you fall for the last time and are too weak to pick yourself up anymore. I would strongly disagree with this. Whilst everyone has their limits, those are normally breached by your choices and attitude towards them, rather than by their tolerance. I have friends I know would take me in if I lost my home, and would give up time or finances to help me practically or emotionally. They've been there for me through tough times over several decades. Some of them I haven't seen in months, yet I guarantee that if I text them in a time of need, they'd be there. However, I can't guarantee they'd be there for me if I showed them nothing but contempt over a lengthy period of time, whether due to mental health, alcohol, or drugs, or falling into bad company. They tolerate it for a while and try everything to help me for frankly an incredible amount of time. I've seen it with others. But if it became clear that I didn't actually want their help, then they'd allow me to take my own path. That's not them being unwilling to help or undependable. There's a huge difference between relying/leaning on someone and pushing them away. Sometimes the best way to help someone is to allow their actions to have consequences, even if that means someone you care about causes themselves problems. A friendship requires effort from both parties. Attempting to maintain one yourself is exhausting and pointless. Story 4. Just because you're right doesn't mean people will agree with you, and might work against you either way. My wife struggles with this. She has an idea that works and gets the company more money, but the owner and other workers are against it because they disagree with it. Even with the evidence that it works better for them financially, all the data in the world won't change the mind of a person who won't listen. There are so many metrics that you can use to argue that your plan is better, especially in a big company. You can have engineering, legal, accounting, executives, procurement, logistics, and a dozen other departments all working together on a single product, and they all have different ideas on what would be the best way to accomplish this goal. And so, in my experience, the actual best solution in every situation is learning how to compromise, to just get people to work with you. Your bosses will appreciate you solving an issue more than if you come up with a better solution that doesn't fix the problem. This happened to me in one of my current jobs as a freelance. The owner of said company spends a lot of resources on dead-end gigs, like paying thousands of dollars to influencers or so-called influencers that won't render any kind of result. This has been going on for years and they're on red numbers. Whenever I show them facts that none of those things work, by tracking conversions with UTMs and special landing pages that those influencers promote, they turn their eyes off and tell me not everything works the same way. So far, no person on earth has connected that we work with those influencers and sales have been on a downward spiral since they introduced them. If we could use those resources on more important mediums that in fact render results, like paid media, we could be doing better. But instead, they cut expenses on those mediums, mentioning that the return on investments was minimal. It was on 10.0 ROAD. But no, they like to see fake paid likes and views on their campaigns instead of juicy dollars. Counterpoint: just because your solution solves one problem doesn't mean it doesn't create other problems. If a group of people disagree with you, you probably don't understand their reasoning. When colleagues feel misunderstood and attacked, they are less likely to tell you what you're missing. In clinics, inefficiency is built into the system because of liability. Not just medical malpractice, but HIPAA, insurance grants, and Medicaid. Any change in that system can have cascading effects. When applying for permits and licenses, SOPs often have to be submitted. Any changes to those SOPs have to be heard by a committee that only meets a few times a year. Only board members, or principal doctors, can make those requests for changes. These are the people who get prosecuted if things go wrong. Warning: telling your wife this may result in a few nights sleeping on the couch. Story 5. You can only help people who actually want it. If they're not ready to change or put in the effort, there's not much you can do. Realizing this can save you a lot of frustration and help you focus on people who actually appreciate your help. It's always tough having those friends who are constantly complaining but doing nothing to address what they are complaining about. But as an adult, you just have to sit there and listen. No point in offering help to someone who isn't asking for it. Kinda like how it's really tough to teach someone who isn't interested in being taught. Yup. My best friend is exactly like this. He's been complaining about the exact same issues for almost a decade now, and it's literally issues I would kill to have. I've spent years giving him all the advice in the world, and he refutes every single one of them no matter how obvious of a solution it is. I remember coming to the conclusion that he doesn't want help, he just wants to complain. He loves sitting in his own misery. He has an obsession with it. I hear this all the time. There have to be cases of people who can't help themselves and need help, right? Maybe not by force, but by education or the like. I can't help but think of an alcoholic relative who will clearly never change. Does that mean we give up and let them die? I'm not sure you'll have answers. I just so badly want some. It works best to only give advice that's asked for and welcomed. It's like planting seeds on soil that's been watered. It's not guaranteed to grow, but it's more likely. Unsolicited advice is like an unwanted gift. You're under no obligation to accept it, even if the giver thinks that they're helping you out. For whatever reason, it may just be the wrong time or place, or circumstances to take it in. If you feel that you must give your opinion on someone else's life, only give it once. Rubbing it in, by repeating it, tends to backfire. In the end, it's their life and they've got to live it. The best you can do sometimes is celebrate and grieve along with them. I have a friend who got a new pet, and I did a ton of research on the animal for her because she's notoriously terrible at research. At first, she seemed like she was listening, but then she showed she didn't actually care what I was saying because she had done her own research, so I stopped telling her what she was doing was wrong. Lo and behold, she complained that her bird got hormonal problems because she didn't listen to me. Sadly, that is probably the nicest issue that's going to happen to her bird. And she has complained of other issues cropping up, but I just listen and nod. No point in trying to help. Story 6. Life is unfair. Once you accept this, you will feel better. Good deeds usually go unrewarded. If you are doing a good deed for a reward, you're doing it for the wrong reason. You will never be able to explain anything to someone who is unwilling or unable to listen. If you try, you will, at minimum, be frustrated and waste your time. To go along with point 3, communication requires several things to all go right. Your ability to clearly put into words what is in your mind, your ability to translate those words to a level you think the other person will understand, their attention to hear the words, predicated on their belief you have something to say that is worth listening to, their ability to translate your words into their own mind, lack of sleep, distractions, having lost attention, belief that you or your words are worth listening to, and many other factors limit communication. It is your job as a communicator to influence these factors in your favor. If they aren't willing to listen, it might be because you are doing a bad job setting yourself up for successful communication. Yeah, and I think it's related to, 1, just because something isn't your fault doesn't mean that it's not your responsibility to deal with it. Like, let's say you're stopped at a red light and someone rear-ends you, giving you pretty severe injuries. That person can't go to physio for you to help you recover. You have to do that bit yourself. Quite often I see people online talking about how their parents are the source of their mental health problems or how a toxic ex ruined their ability to trust others. And yeah, that happens and I feel sorry for them, and I think most people figure it out on their own time, which is good. But somewhat of a harsh truth for people is that your ex can't come back and uncheat on you. You have to do the learning how to trust people again bit yourself. And people can help you, but it won't be the person who's at fault. Story 7. You can't trust your employer. Ever. I'm not saying this as a reason to be a crappy employee. We're all tired of having to deal with bad service or whatever. But yes, take advantage of what you can in your employment while you can. Because there is no real loyalty culture anymore like how it used to be. At the end of the day, you are a cost that has to be justified while the business can do so. I've been told by a previous CEO that my team was safe after a wave of layoffs because of XYZ, but within 5 months they let all but 2 of the team go, including me. They could only keep on designers while changing their strategy to stay afloat. So if you are offered special benefits like money towards conferences, equipment, whatever, make sure you do it. If your job is hourly, make sure they don't screw you on your time. And make sure you understand if it's really your job to clean up bio messes. Sometimes that can be against the law, but I have done it and seen others deal with this. Also, HR is for the company's defense, not yours. But it's very important to have unusual situations in writing in case it comes back to you. And that is when dealing with HR is important for an employee. I saw something on LinkedIn this morning that someone reposted that was this guy saying something like, "There's no right time to ever leave your job. Employees think their company isn't loyal to them, but that's because the employees have never given the company a reason to be loyal. If you don't trust the company and are loyal to the company will never be loyal to you. More people need to understand this and stop leaving over inconsequential reasons like they're pissy they didn't get the raise they wanted." Lots of people were agreeing with this as well. Story 8. You have to go to the DMV. You just do. That's not really true. You don't have to have a vehicle, and once you get a non-driver's license identification card, you don't have to keep coming back all the time. Maybe like once every 6 years. I'm hoping they'll let us renew ID cards, not licenses, via mail soon. COVID sucked, but there are a ton of wins for accessibility that came out of every corporation and agency having to scramble and find solutions to DMV-level lines. Ideally, they would have already had those solutions in place and not had to scramble, but we take what we can get. Not if you live outside the US, you don't. Other countries usually have an equivalent, but the amount of times you have to go varies. In the UK, for example, I've had to go to testing centers, both theory and practical, enough times to get the 2 categories that I hold on my license. But all paperwork was initially a form sent in the post, and now all of it is online only. Photo change, license renewal, address change, all online now. Story 9. This is more of a saying, but I feel it helps shed light on a few things. We judge ourselves by our intentions. We judge others by their actions. IOW, people are going to look at you for what you do, and your intentions are mostly irrelevant. And on the flip side of that same idea, it's worth being more intentional about considering others' intentions and circumstances as we do for ourselves. It definitely can allow us to be a lot more compassionate and understanding if we give people the benefit of the doubt before coming to a conclusion. I love this one. I always get caught up in the idea that there's no truly selfless deed. For me, helping others feel good even if I don't get recognized for it. So, is it really a good deed if I'm getting a dopamine hit for it? But at the end of the day, if I'm helping a fellow human being, maybe that's enough. Story 10. People who are good for you will make you feel happy, joyful, accepted, cared for, and filled with fun times, despite any differences. People who are not good for you will make you feel anxious, sad, down, slighted, judged, and never check in on you if you're not okay, and won't even bother noticing when you're not okay. Genuine people will never let you suffer in silence or watch you suffer. Stay away from those who make you feel negative emotions and thoughts. I think your comment may be true and useful for certain kinds of people, but as a general statement, I can think of counterexamples. A person can make me feel good, but for a destructive, selfish reason, like codependent addiction. A person can make me feel bad because they cause me to face things about myself I would rather not face, but which would be beneficial if I did so and got to the other side of that. Expecting automatic validation or unwavering positive feelings from others seems kind of shallow and self-centered. Personal growth can be scary and painful. This is true for mostly mentally healthy people, but I will say as a person with really bad insecurity about how other people feel about me, my brain will invent reasons to feel anxious, sad, down, slighted, and judged, even if they are checking on me. Sometimes I suffer in silence and wish they'd say something, but then get afraid that if I keep saying there are problems, that they'll get tired of my baggage and actually leave. Since I have abandonment issues, I don't say anything. So I do agree with you generally, but people with my personal issues need to not really listen to those thoughts too terribly closely, or at least give them a second thought. Story 11. Happiness and satisfaction are completely internal and based on what you have chosen to measure them by. No one and nothing can make you happy unless you have chosen to let it. This is why there are so many miserable rich people and people who have great lives that still unhappily yearn for more. I actually feel like a lot of rich people are unhappy. Happy people are content, and contented people don't tend to get rich. I think it's based on what they do or how they got rich. I know some families that have inherited wealth and they seem relatively happy, but the children all work normal jobs, nonprofit, public school teacher. They just don't really have to worry about money, which causes a lot of stress in other people's lives. I also think there are some people in sports or entertainment who seem happy because they're doing what they love, and it happens to also make them a lot of money. But I don't know any of them personally, so can't really confirm. I'm sure there are people working on Wall Street or for the pharmaceutical industry who don't love what they do, but they do it to get rich, and they are less likely to be content. Overall, I agree with your statement that content people don't tend to get rich, they tend to get enough, which is much easier. Story 12. It is easy to believe that everything is hopeless and terrible because that means you don't have to do anything about it, because apparently it wouldn't do anything anyway. There's no point. There is comfort in hopelessness. So you can sit there, do nothing, believe that the world is in the hands of some mysterious, insidious cabal, and coast believing the results would be the same whether or not you did anything between nothing and everything. It's much harder to accept that you have power, because that might entail some responsibility. The truth is, over your life, the lives of the people around you, and to some extent the world, what you do actually matters. And given the way the effects of our choices ripple beyond our ability to see them, probably in much larger ways than we realize. Story 13. In general, people in the real world are oblivious to you. You are not even a blip on their radar. If you're insecure about something you wear or how you look, remember, nobody cares. Yep, with a very rare exception. You don't remember anybody in life for more than a few minutes. If something happens, you might remember them for a few hours and tell your significant other about it when you get home. If something really interesting happens, you'll remember them a while longer, but even then, you remember the story, not the person, and wouldn't recognize them again if you saw them. That's all of us. Nobody is looking, nobody cares, and even if you did lose your crap in the supermarket one time because they ran out of your favorite ice cream and a few randoms are still telling the story, none of them would remember you if they walked past you in the same spot tomorrow. We waste so much time worrying about people who never think about us. Story 14. If a romantic interest is not giving you the same attention or respect you give them, they don't really care about you or want you, and you're in for a world of hurt if you keep telling yourself otherwise. I keep trying to bring this to light to someone I care about very much, but she just keeps repeating the same cycle over and over again of falling in limerence with the guys off the internet and dating apps, or guys she hardly knows. Most of these guys are openly emotionally unavailable, as if they are clear with her and have stated in no uncertain terms that they do not want a relationship. When I've pointed this out gently in the past, she insists that there is something deeper going on between them despite the above. She then gives them 100% of her time, energy, love, resources, you name it, even going as far as to put her friendships with everyone who actually cares for her on the back burner. These guys barely throw her a bone, give her less than the bare minimum, and ignore/ghost her for long periods of time with little to no affection or attention, and she doesn't see the problems with it. She keeps making excuses for them while trying to control this false narrative that the situation will become a relationship. She sticks it out on the basis that she believes they'll change, or she can change them. I understand she wants closeness and this ideal romantic relationship. That's very human, and there's nothing wrong with wanting that kind of love. But she jumps from one situation to the other with almost no break or self-work, exploration in between, and she's only opened herself up to more hurt in the process. I'm not her therapist or her parents, so I don't get into it and say very little because she's super defensive even about little things, especially if you point out something negative about her situation. She is trying to downplay or ignore. So I just try to support her choices and be there for her as much as I can within what's healthy and kind enough for my sanity. I feel like this is also the case with old friends too. I'm currently dealing with friends who, after having kids, just seem to be disengaging and not putting any effort into interacting beyond the occasional text message. On the one hand, the smart thing to do would probably be just cut ties and not waste any more time on it, but on the other, it is stupidly hard to make new friends once you're an adult with a kid. Story 15. If people want to spend time with you, they will. And romantically related, he's just not that into you. If a potential romantic partner wants to get to know you better, they will make it a priority to do so. They won't be too busy, have to go to the gym, need to work late, be out of town, etc. If they're making excuses, they're just not interested. When something is important to a person, that person prioritizes it. I slightly disagree here. My issue is with the need to work late one, as sometimes that isn't an option. Some careers require this. Some employers require this. It does no one in the relationship any good if you lose your job because you prioritize dating over employment. Now, of course, there are limitations to this. If they work 80 hours a week, sometimes that person just isn't in a place to have a relationship, or it's not a priority to them. However, plenty of people will want to spend time with you and cannot. When my wife and I first started dating, I was working for a big tech company that demanded strenuous hours. I straight up told her that I'd rather be hanging out with her than working, but I'd lose my job if I did. She understood and we worked around my schedule. Communication is key on that one. Story 16. You need to provide the world with something for people to value you. There are so many people out there who think that they just deserve a girlfriend or a boyfriend, but if you're not giving anything, if you don't offer anything, then you're not going to get the kind of person who offers you anything. The same thing with friendships. Friendships are about giving. It's not about what you want, it's about what you offer. And I'm not talking about financial stuff here, I'm talking about listening, being there when someone needs you, helping them. When you hit your 20s, all you can think about is what the world can give you, not about what you can offer. You need to offer something to be valuable to society. Yeah, it's a different mindset. People have an easy time understanding that two musicians can form a band, and that the band then becomes its own sort of new entity made of two parts. Yet, when it comes to friendships or relationships, the very wording, "get a girlfriend," suggests they see themselves as a single person holding onto something/possession. Just a different mindset. I like the music band analogy because it really represents how a really fulfilling relationship is something that we participate in making, not like a magic land to find and then live in, or a magic item to find and hold on to. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have similar advice or a story similar to these that you would like to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.